Hey guys, so in this presentation we're going to be going over tort liability, what it is, and then we're going over 5 court cases that relate to liability in schools. 2 of those are going to be intentional torts, and 3 of them are going to be negligence, which is what we'll get into in the next slide. So basically what tort liability is the idea that individuals are liable for their actions regarding civil wrongs. So basically, when it boils down to in education is, in certain instances, teachers, school districts are being sued for something that happened to a student, whether it's the teacher physically grabbing, pushing the student, or something happening to the student on the teacher's watch that they possibly could have prevented. And that kind of gets into those 2 different types of tort. The first one's intentional. This is the teacher intentionally using force on a student that can be perceived usually as assault or battery. This happens a lot, and generally the courts are pretty lenient on this, kind of going through the research and everything. Assault is going to be threatening to physically touch the student, grab them, tape over their mouth, tie them to a desk, something like that. And the battery is actually going to be when the physical contact is made. So those are intentional torts, and we'll talk about a couple here in a minute. The second type of tort is negligence. So this is going to be a teacher not exercising the proper level of care when a student sustains an injury. And it kind of goes into negligence. Are they taking the proper steps? Are they watching the kids? Do they explain the rules, the hazards properly? And it just kind of goes into common sense. What's the best way we can protect these students? And again, we'll get into some of these here in a minute. So the first case is going to be Frame Force Cominex. So basically what happened here is Frames was in a class. The substitute teacher already kicked a couple kids out. He was being disruptive during a test. She asked him to leave. He refused. She walked over. He stood up in a somewhat threatening manner. The substitute teacher grabbed his arm as he was standing up, which kind of threw him off balance, which ran him up into the front, into the podium, up to the blackboard. And then she ended up grabbing his arm and walking him out of class. So when this came to court, the court actually ruled in favor of the teacher. They said that she used a proper level of force that wasn't threatening in order to de-escalate the situation, basically. So I teach in a Title I school. We definitely have a lot of issues with physical violence, a lot of students fighting. So if this situation occurred in my school, first off, the student most likely would have reacted in a physical and violent way. It's happened before in our school. We've talked about it a lot. So that would have happened, and then the whole situation, the administration would have been brought in, and all this would have happened. As a proactive measure that we've kind of taken in our school is de-escalating it and not letting it get to that point. If it does get to that point, to let the student sit there, do what they're doing, whether it's sitting, refusing to leave class, and then we bring in administration in. And that's a big push that our administration has made to kind of help in this situation. Instead of getting upset, getting angry, we're instructed to call administration. They come deal with it. So then the teacher isn't being held liable or doing something that could potentially be a tort case in the future. This kind of goes into those professional ethics as well. Most of the time when you're looking at professional ethics, working with students, we all get frustrated as teachers. But one of the biggest ethics is not to touch a student, put your hands on a student in any way. That's just kind of something we're entrusted in these kids' safety and their learning. And anytime you're putting your hands on them in this way, generally goes against those professional ethics. and are going to cause problems. So the next case we're going to talk about is another intentional tort. It's going to be Peterson versus Baker. In this case, it's going to be Peterson and another student were being distractive and disruptive in the class. The other student was asked to leave. Peterson got up to leave as well because he thought they were both being asked to leave. It started out as a little bit misunderstanding between the teacher and the student. The teacher told him, the teacher being Baker, told him, "No, I didn't mean you, sit back down." He continued to be wanted out of the class, saying, "No, I want to leave, I'm going to leave." Baker blocked the door with his arm so that Peterson couldn't leave. Peterson grabbed his arm, and there's a debate on how hard, and pushed the arm down so he could walk out of the classroom. As soon as that happened, Baker grabbed him by his neck and squeezed. Again, there is, in the court case, a little bit of a discrepancy of how hard he grabbed the throat. But it was reported that when Peterson went to administration, about 5 minutes later, there were red marks on his neck. In this case, the courts actually ruled in Baker's favor, the teacher's favor, because she did not act in malice or intend to cause harm and reacted in a physical manner only after that the student physically touched her and assaulted her. So again, like I was saying at the first slide, courts tend to take a huge, tend to favor teachers a lot in these types of intentional torts, as long as it happens without malice, without intending to cause the harm. If a student is being disruptive, if they physically touch the teacher first, courts are a lot more lenient with the teachers in this sense. Again, if this happened in my school, a student probably would have lashed out. If he was grabbed by the throat, most likely physically, there definitely would have been words being said as they were walking out of the classroom. Again, proactive measures is not putting yourself in this position of blocking the door. At my school, generally, we're told to, again, not block the door, let the student leave in this situation. Since he's determined to leave, we're going to let him leave. We call administration, tell them what happened, they find the kid, they deal with it. And I think this is a good way to deal with it because you're not putting yourself in a bad situation, and administration can deal with it the way they see fit. And just like that, professional ethics, not reacting to the students, not letting them get riled up, and placing hands on them, especially. I know the teacher's arm got pushed down, but reacting in a negative way and grabbing the throat is definitely not the best way to handle this ethically wise, and is putting the teacher in a pretty bad situation. So moving on to the negligent cases, the first one is going to be Munn versus Hotchkiss School. In this one, Hotchkiss School was taking their students on a trip. They're in China. They're hiking. Munn was bitten by a tick while they're hiking, which gave her a pretty bad disease, causing serious neurological damage, and she couldn't talk anymore. Her parents sued the school district for failing to warn them that the trip might bring her into contact with disease-carrying insects and warning them to wear proper clothes while hiking. In this case, the courts ruled in favor of Munn. They were awarded quite a bit of money for this, and they ruled again that the school was negligent. They didn't properly warn the students about the dangers and the parents of the dangers of this trip, and didn't provide them with ways that they could prevent this from happening. Again, working at a Title I school, if this happened at my school, the parents would have questioned what happened, wondered what happened, but I don't think they would have pursued a lawsuit, just knowing the types of parents that we work with. I guess some proactive measures that I could see potentially working is I'm sure the kids had to sign, and parents had to sign a permission slip to be able to go on this trip, and include, a section in there as a disclaimer that it's a trip. Although we're going to provide the best supervision we can, there's still that possibility for injury or illness traveling to a new country, and say that the school's not liable for it in that situation. Again, that's looking at it. You could also, in hindsight, add in, there's always that chance, wear proper clothing to the activity that you're doing, looking at hindsight. But again, I think including that section on the chance of injury and illness that the school's not liable for is something that could definitely be a proactive measure going forward. I don't think professional ethics would have helped too much in this case. Potentially, if they saw a student wearing shorts and a t-shirt on a hike where they know that they're hiking and they might hurt themselves, they could possibly say, hey, maybe you want to wear a long sleeve shirt, long pants. But other than that, they could be as diligent as they want, and a tick bite still is going to occur. So I don't see too much wrong with those professional ethics there. Moving on to Johnson versus School District of Millard. So what happened here, it's a first grade class. It's in a music classroom. The teacher's teaching them how to play the song London Bridge in the accompanying game. If you look at the picture, you come under the bridge holding hands. The kid's caught in the bridge, and they're just kind of tossed back and forth gently between the two arms. In this case, Johnson was the first student to go and get caught in the bridge. The kids swung him too hard into a bookshelf, and he cut his face right over his right eye. And while this was happening, the teacher, Patton, was up in the front of the classroom writing on a blackboard instead of watching. And in this case, the court ruled in favor of Johnson, saying that the teacher was negligent by not being diligent in their supervision and teaching the game correctly. So again, if this happened in my school, the reactive measures would have been to send the student who was injured to the nurse and warn the other students that the game could be dangerous, using that as an example. Again, I don't think it would have been taken this far just in the school I'm at. But again, different school districts are different. In this case, a first grader cuts his head. The parents are going to wonder why, and this happens. A proactive measure could possibly, again, looking in hindsight, play the game at half speed so they understand. The teacher did give warnings not to swing too hard, not to be silly. There's a potential for being hurt. So they could play the game at half speed first to make sure the students understood. Potentially the teacher could have been one of the two who catches the student in the arms just to show the speed of how they should rock them. But definitely the teacher should have been watching carefully. If this is the first time they're playing the game, she has to be watching instead of writing on the blackboard, and that could definitely save this. Professional ethics, again, that's similar to what I just said. Make sure they're paying full attention. It's the first time they're playing the game. You got to supervise them, especially first graders. And the last case is in New Mexico PE class. I couldn't find the actual court name for it. What happened, students were playing floor hockey. A student accidentally hit another student in the eye. The student had to get multiple surgeries. In this case, the court ruled in favor of the school, saying there's no negligence. The teacher did everything he could. Again, it's a student accidentally hitting another student in the eye while the teacher's supervising. Not much they could do. If this happened in my school, some reactive measures might be taking floor hockey out of the curriculum or instituting safety policies like wearing eye protection. My dad was a PE teacher. This happened in his class. They didn't get sued, but the school made him make the students wear goggles while they're playing hockey. So again, that's probably a reactive measure. Proactive measure could be, every PE teacher institutes safety rules. They could have instituted a no stick above the waist policy. Again, this isn't going to definitely take that away, but at least there's a rule in place saying that they can't, and the teacher's watching for that. And again, professional ethics are hard in PE. There's a lot more danger. The PE is probably going to put in as many safety rules as they can. and just make sure the kids are safe at all times.